It's pretty obvious that the Umbrella Academy owes a lot to its special effects and CGI team, but you're wondering what the Umbrella Academy looks like without CGI. You're not the only one, so let's tell you all about how the show managed to create such amazing CGI effects. Firstly, Luther's Life on the Moon. The Umbrella Academy is an award-winning comic book series with a cult following, and as you probably already know, it became one of Netflix's most watched original series immediately after it debuted. In fact, fans of the show are in love with the super-violent reimagining of superhero mythos and the complexities of their lives. But the story isn't the show's only attractive quality. If you've seen the show, you must have noticed some beautiful set pieces and elaborate shooting locations. And what makes everything perfect are the show's vividly realized visual effects. With an Emmy-nominated production design and special visual effects team, the show has been doing wonders with CGI since 2019. If you're a fan of the show, you probably remembered the magnificent opening moments of the series, an extended version of which includes Luther Hargreeves spending his days away on the surface of the moon. The CGI work that went to create that scene is impressive, to say the least, with the character floating through space near the moon and also watching the sunrise over the Earth. It becomes all the more striking when you realize the insane amount of green screen that was used to create Luther's life on the moon. It also seems as if every single element of that shot, other than Hopper's appearance, is not real and created using CGI wirework. Secondly, the superpowers. Depicting the powers of the Hargreeves clan was one of the main tasks of the creative team, and with more complicated characters like Vanya's, the CGI team definitely put in a great deal of extra effort to portray how her superpowers developed with time, especially because they were so deeply connected to her emotional growth. For the longest time, Vanya could not use her powers because their adoptive father was stunting her growth in fear that she would bring about an apocalypse. In fact, she didn't even know she had powers. But as her anger and depression grew, the youngest member of the Hargreave clan broke out of her shell and stunned the world with her power, quite literally. In the last episodes of the first season, Vanya becomes the White Violin, shooting out light and bringing about the end of the world. And everything, including her staggering performance and the destruction of the moon, is insanely detailed CGI work, and hundreds of experts have worked on it. Another great example of CGI superpower is Klaus. Even though he started off as the funny, junky brother, the season finale established him as one of the strongest siblings in the family. In fact, watching Klaus combine his own powers to communicate with the dead and his deceased brother Ben's inner beast was one of the most powerful moments on the show. But even though it was a dazzling depiction of brotherly love and raw power, the scene took a ton of CGI work to create. The Commission. One of the most amazing things created by the Umbrella Academy is the Commission. This powerful organization extends the boundaries of time and space and is led by a man with a fishbowl for a head. The concept is amazing, but did you know that the Commission took quite a bit of CGI to invent? In the 5th episode of the show titled Number 5, Number 5 actually looks back on his life and the places that he has visited when he was stranded at another time. A part of this trip included him making contact with the Commission, which even tried to recruit him for some dangerous jobs. The Commission controlled thousands of agents who they sent back and forth in time to ensure nobody altered Earth's timelines and that things were happening the way they were supposed to. The Commission is also a dangerous organization that often resorts to violence just to keep the Earth's timeline straight, and as Number 5 is taking a tour of the organization to understand how it works, he sees a 1990s-style bustling office full of regular people doing their desk jobs. But creating this scene required some serious green screen, but depicting a regular office didn't take the showmakers and CGI experts a lot of time to execute, especially since they were working on harder edits. And lastly, Pogo. One of the show's most important figures was the hyper-intelligent ape, Pogo. And as you probably already know, Pogo was a CGI chimpanzee who also acted as a father figure for the children, especially since their adoptive dad wasn't much of a father figure to any of them. Pogo was also a loyal servant to the master of the house, and one of the greatest characters the show has ever produced. Even the showmakers love him. Steve Blackman, who is part of the show's team, has admitted that he loves Pogo because of how fabulous he is. Blackman also mentioned how Pogo in the show was one of the only things tying the kids to their adoptive home. He wasn't just a father figure, but also a constant source of comfort for the young superheroes. And even when they grew up, they all loved him unanimously. It was Weta Digital, a legendary VFX company that brought Pogo to life. If that name rings a bell, you might be aware of some of their other projects too. Weta Digital basically designed Middle-earth for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It has also worked on the famous Planet of the Apes saga, which explains their ape designing expertise. Blackman mentioned how he was given suggestions that Pogo should be performed by an actor in a prosthetic suit like the Planet of the Apes movies, so he ended up calling Weta Digital and asking them to create the perfect Pogo, and they immediately agreed. They also did a pretty great job since Pogo shined throughout the show, even though he was supposed to be a supporting character. He's also one of the best pieces of CGI work on the show. Burrell was one of the show's visual effects supervisors. He was also the associate producer and was tasked with coordinating everything, including the various post-production entities. And since there was a ton of CGI work going on, he had to manage 8 different production houses working on various visual effects. He mentions how hard it was to create the perfect Pogo, which was mainly because it's really hard to create a supporting character that is also an ape. Chris White, who was Weta's visual effects supervisor, said that anything that's interesting and new, which this show definitely was, is something that the producers and artists are going to gravitate towards. Everyone had so much fun on this show, just because they were new and interesting problems. And the character from the early days, something about his design, everyone just immediately liked him. I can see why he's appealing. So around 220 Weta artists and CGI specialists had to work to bring Pogo to life. And even though Blackman admits that he was skeptical about whether they'd be able to create the perfect Pogo, they were very encouraging and supportive throughout the whole process. In fact, Blackman appreciated the visual effects team and the company and said they never came back to us once. Whatever we wrote, Weta accomplished. They never used the word can't, ever, in the process. Whatever I asked, whatever I put in the script or the writers put in the script, they delivered on. They were that good. He also mentioned how common it was for vendors to come back to showmakers and tell them that they wouldn't be able to create the effects the show wanted. Some vendors even complained about not having enough funds to create the character. But, according to Blackman, the company did not ask for any extra cash. People back out all the time, but Weta Visual really worked hard on creating the perfect character. You might not be able to tell, but when Pogo is on screen, his voice and facial expressions are based on Adam Goodley's work. In fact, Goodley is one of the actors who have worked on Pogo extensively. He even spent hours trying to master Pogo's voice and actions. And you'll be surprised to know that his whole performance was captured in post-production, but on the set, it was an actor named Ken Hall who was acting and interacting with the cast as Pogo. And even though Hall isn't ever seen on screen as Pogo, he did get a small role as Herb in episode 6 because he was a phenomenal actor. Blackman even mentioned how he made it a point to give Hall another role, because it wasn't fair. I mean, imagine from his point of view, all his good acting gets removed from what he did with all the characters, and he sort of disappears. So Hall had to be in the story one way or another. Pogo, the commission, and action scenes aren't the only places where CGI is used in the show, and makers have also added finer details to all kinds of landscapes, including the Hargreeves house. It's safe to say that the Umbrella Academy hosts some of the best CGI ever seen on TV. And with that, we'll end this video. Thanks for watching.